Thank you, Bob, for tuning in. Thank you, Doris, for tuning in. Thank you. Thank you, Sebastian. Thank you, Sebastian, for tuning in. Thank you, Sebastian, for tuning in. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Doris. And uh, uh, yes, thank you so much. Thank you. Greetings from Brussels. Thank you so much. I'm glad you guys are still up from Brussels. I know you guys were supposed to be sleeping now, but I'm glad you're still awake. And thank you so much for tuning in. And if you just join in, and if you're here in the United States, just indicate below that you're here in the United States. And if you are in ground zero, just thank you, King, for joining in. If you are in ground zero, just indicate below ground zero. Ground zero, I know many people that may be watching me for the first time. Thank you so much. Those who may be watching me for the first time, when I talk of ground zero, I mean the Southern Cameroon. I mean the Federal Republic of Ambazonian. And if you are still at work, thank you. And if you are in La Republique, thank you. Thank you, Eric, for joining in, still from Belgium. Thank you so much. And if you're here in the United States, just indicate where you are here in the United States. And if you are in Europe, just indicate where you are in Europe. If you are in China, Russia, Japan, South Korea, wherever you are, South America, or anywhere in Africa, just indicate below. And I thank you for taking the opportunity to tune in this evening. And I have been talking about the issues affecting the Southern Cameroon. And this is very pertinent to me, and I believe it's also pertinent to you as well. But it is very sad to see that our people has been grounded by someone whom we together invited in our home. They become the architects of our home. And that is the problem I am speaking about. And that's the problem I have been speaking about. How, and my questions to you is, how did this happen? Someone you invited to your home out of a sudden become an occupier of your home and be the sole deciding member of your home. Is that amazing? That is what is happening. And the international community acknowledge and remain silent, and they believe that it's okay. And so everyone should accept, and that is okay. You know, well, does it matter? Well, you belong to the dark race. As you belong to the dark race, it doesn't matter to the international community that they need to see into this issue. That, I mean, I have been speaking about it, and many of you have been talking about it. It doesn't occur to them that it is in something they need to do something about it. They remain silent because if it had happened to them, of course, they will raise alarm, and everyone will be toe to toe walking with them together. But since between you and I, they remain silent, of course. Murder them, do whatever you do, so long as one of our decider, of course, you know who I am speaking to, France. France. So France is the sole deciding member. That is why when it's happening, France didn't occur to them that they have to make a statement that they are the architects of what is going on. Does it matter? It doesn't. And that is why God gave me this opportunity that I am here in these great nations. And that is why I am speaking up, and that we need to stand together. Imagine all of us have been all in various education, not all elsewhere, but in these great nations. And many of you in London, many of you in Belgium, many of you in France, all studied there. And you're from the Anglophone speaking. And they don't trust you that you can lead your own nations. But they believe in someone whom you invited as the best person that can manage your own economy on your behalf. That's the world we live in. That's the environment. Of course. Does it matter? It doesn't. Does they care? Well, it doesn't reflect them. And so since it doesn't reflect them, they don't worry about it. And that is why we have a United Nations office here in the United States. And they remain silent. It seems like they're not aware of what is happening. And since they are not aware of what is happening, it doesn't matter to them. They could be murdered. They could be killed. But however, the God of Jerusalem, the God that made us, is awake. And so we must stand firmly and let that we shall never be crumbled by the power that be, because we are more alert, we are more intelligent, we are created equal, and we own the inalienable right and freedom and self-determinations. Just imagine my mom, your dad, your brothers, your sisters, your great-grandmom, your great-niece, you name the rest. They get up from their homes. They are being driven by someone. We don't even know where they come from, just simply because we invite them to our home. And so they become the occupier. And international community conspire with them and regard us of the lesser class. And see those who have mentally challenged, can't even reason, can't even recall the name of the wife, and can remember the son, the daughter, 85 years old. The world community, and including the embassies that we have them in Cameroon, we think they can make their own reasoning and report to their government, but they remain silent. Of course, 85 years old, can't even recall the wife's name, can't recall. Imagine you're in the hospital and you find someone came into the hospital and he can recall your name and he can even address you. And you're kind of wondering whether are you the patient or are you the doctor or someone that just came in that don't even know. But because we are the people that we rely on those above, because those below, they don't have mental capability. And so that is why we find ourselves, that is why you find Southern Cameroon in these terrible situations. What a sad incident. That is why I am presenting this case to fellow Americans, because they understand, because the issues that are affecting Southern Cameroon, I can imagine that the people of Southern Cameroon can be going through this despite the fact that the world community can become unreliable and that we can believe on the international community and that they remain silent. And they want to show to us that they don't understand factual information. Well, what a chaotic scene. You know, it is very sad. It is sad that we have an office here in the United States. Well, it could have been China, And all of us are aware that China, as a communist country, there is no law. They don't believe in law. Since they are above the law, that is why you can see the current Chinese president, he declared himself as a dictatorship. And since he declared himself, it doesn't occur to the world because that's the culture. But in Anglo-Saxon heritage, we believe in the value of law. We believe that the law is the fundamental principles that guided all of us. And we, the Southern Cameroon, believe in that fundamental principles. And that we share this value with the Western society, United States, Great Britain, and many some other European nations that share this common value. But today, we are suffering consequences because imagine you sit here and you travel to, and they prevent you that you have no legal right to enter in a place you once left because someone called Pobia prevent you. I want to take a moment to thank all of you that just tune in, watching, But before I begin, I want to take a moment to thank the President of the United States. I want to take a moment to thank the U.S. Congress. I want to take a moment to thank the U.S. Senate. I want to take a moment to thank the U.S. Department of State. I want to take a moment to thank the United States Department of Defense. I want to take a moment to thank all of you, citizens of these great nations, for all the effort and contributions that you have made towards the self-organizations of the Southern Cameroon territory. Southern Cameroon was never a conquered territory, but I want to take a moment to thank you, all of us, before I proceed. But before we proceed, let's listen. I want to Southern Cameroon. Before, as usually when I begin, I usually give a brief summary of what is Southern Cameroon. Because many of my listeners may be watching me for the first time. They want to understand why I talk about Southern Cameroon. Southern Cameroon, right now that I'm speaking to you, there are at least 60,000 Southern Cameroon that has been terrorized, brutalized by the army of the Republic of Cameroon. And at least 60,000 of them are in Nigeria. And out of those 60,000, one are living in a single meal in 24 hours. That can indicate to you how horrible it is. 60,000, that's approximate. 60,000 are living with a single meal in a day. Southern Cameroon is a fertile land that has crops, agricultural, with varieties of foods. It is not a land that has problems of food productions. In other words, Southern Cameroon produced enough food to be able to feed the Republic of Cameroon, the French speaking. So Southern Cameroon alone, Southern Cameroon is made up of approximately 8 million populations. When Southern Cameroon in 1961, when their independence was granted, they were not as the current populations. And it is because the international community were more responsible and actively engaged in world affairs. They were more engaged and they were participating in world affairs. They were able to identify problems and prevent it before it even arises to the next stages of difficult destructions. And so that is the international community that I'm speaking about. Remember, Southern Cameroon, the United Nations after the 1945, the victory when the Allied forces defeated the Germans, the United Nations meeting here in the United States, it was decided that those territorial areas of territorial integrity that were defeated by the Allied forces should be prepared for immediate independence. So Southern Cameroon are one of those territories in Africa that Britain was initiating, or Britain was the leader of the colonized, or one of the territory that the Britain that was delegated by the Allied forces that Britain should handle and prepare them for eventual independence. And this was the decision made by the United Nations. So Southern Cameroon is not an ethnic society, as many people has described. Southern Cameroon is a sovereign nation. Article 76B of the United Nations Charter, 76B and 1608 XV of the United Nations granted the sovereignty of Southern Cameroon as a sovereign nation. And Southern Cameroon is bound by the United Nations Charter recognizing the sovereignty of Southern Cameroon. And right now that I'm speaking, one question that keep on arise, and I keep on asking myself, how did we get to this level that Southern Cameroon become a colonial territory of the Republic of Cameroon? That question still bothers me, and it bothers many of people that are aware of the Southern Cameroon crisis. How did Southern Cameroon arrive in these situations? The problem is clear. Certain nations are the manipulator, and this, especially France. France is the architect or the chief manipulator of African continent. And that is why when you look at the various African countries, they are going through political crisis. You know, France knew that an independent colony is a threat to France's hegemony. And so therefore, by giving them a total, complete independence, we deprive France for their own personal interests. Whereas in Great Britain, no. Britain believes that you can obtain your independence. Once you obtain your independence, then we can deal with you as a sovereign nation. That is why when the United Nations mandate that all those territories that were under the control of the Allied leaders should be prepared for immediate independence. Britain prepared Southern Cameroon for immediate independence. And how did they do that? They organized political structure. They allowed the leaders to create political party. And they were through free, they were through the will of the people to create a formal political party. And that is why you have Endele and you have Jongo Foncha. Initially, Endele was the first prime minister of Southern Cameroon because Southern Cameroon, as a sovereign nation, elect their prime minister. The prime minister formed a cabinet. That cabinet was presented at Enugu House of Assembly. Enugu House of Assembly was where the British representative was residing in Nigeria. Prior to coming to a self-independent, they allowed them a certain autonomy. The fact that they were being ruled with Nigeria together, they have a certain level of autonomy. And that autonomy, as the people became matured in political structure, in political format, then the people of Great Britain began to relinquish their authority over Southern Cameroon. In doing so, giving Southern Cameroon the upper hand to make a political freedom. Southern Cameroon were more prosperous because when the Queen of England usually allocate resources or revenue to those territories, but because of the great reform that were carried on by the Southern Cameroon territory, the British Crown did not have to send revenue. Instead, Southern Cameroon were making surplus than expected by the British Crown. So Southern Cameroon, with its political structure, discipline, and accountability, they were more organized than the French-speaking Republic of Cameroon. Then, how do we arrive in these situations? That's the greatest question. How did Southern Cameroon relinquish their identity and become so rely on the Republic of Cameroon? It was the complicity of France and the Republic of Cameroon. They thought because we organize clean and fair elections, so they believe that if we come together with the essence of political structure in Southern Cameroon, we can be able to reform the Republic of Cameroon. But unfortunately, it didn't go that way. France, the chief manipulator, the chief architects of manipulator. And so France was outsmart. They organized a referendum. How was this referendum organized? There were two answers to the questions. Yes. So the answer of the referendum, there was yes, which is in English. There is oui, which is in French word. And so those two words, so in other words, it should have been yes or no. So many people presume that yes or no was the answer, was the choices. But rather, if you choose oui, which is in French word yes, so if you choose as an alternative, you were simply voting yes. And so you wouldn't accept the English version because since yes was absolutely accepting the Republic of Cameroon. And so because of this became a troublesome. This became a troublesome. And so that is why when Southern Cameroon Southern Cameroon became the architects of the French manipulator. And so since Southern Cameroon were being manipulated by the France behind, and Southern Cameroon soon find these political assimilations. And so Southern Cameroon began to become wiped out in the structure. So it is very, very difficult to understand, how this Southern Cameroon arrived in this situation. And that is why the international community remains silent. And when we speak, they remain silent. That is why when United Nations representatives still saying they are watching. But how, when, and how are they going to be continue watching? And so Southern Cameroon has to solve their problems and so have to carry on their solutions and take their own decisions how they can overcome the crisis. And right now that I'm speaking, why Southern Cameroon are crying foul? France is still in Southern Cameroon, manipulating the Southern Cameroon and thinking that we are just playing for time. We don't understand what we have stood for. We are purely ignorance. And that is why we are bringing this historical background to fellow Americans. Because Americans want to know, why should America intervene? American citizens want to know, why should the American government intervene on behalf of Southern Cameroon? And so because these historical factual informations often are not are not expressed in major media. Why? Because it doesn't matter to them. It doesn't matter how many people were killed. Just imagine a single individual was wounded in Europe. The entire world would have been in chaotic scene, and the information would have been running 24 hours. The situation would be different.
What's the kind of thing here? Hey, you do my own. In a class. Hey, fish me slow. You do not have to be.